Mr. Chairman, just a brief comment, and it's kind of to lay down a marker. I am extraordinarily interested in moving NAHASDA forward. I think it's critically important. But even if we authorize NAHASDA, and even if all that money gets deployed in a very short period of time, we will still have a crisis in housing in Indian country. And so where NAHASDA is critically important, for all the reasons the chairman stated, we have got to have a different and more expansive strategy to deal with the housing needs in Indian country. And so I just want to thank the chairman for bringing this forward, but also encourage further discussion about private-public partnerships, working with states to build out more and more affordable housing. Getting back to, I think, the point that Senator Langford was making, and I think Senator Tester, which is y'all have been patching together on each one of these reservations a series of programs to try and expand the resource and basically leverage the resource. This really is directed at you, Mr. Cooper. When you look at the national organization, do you have a best practices, innovation kind of document that we can look at where we've seen amazing results through the creativity of sovereignty and self-determination kind of coming to the forefront, saying, if we do it this way, things will happen. And I think the chairwoman had an excellent example of how you leverage social service resources against housing resources to meet needs in housing. But I'm wondering if there's something tangible that we can get a hold of that we can review.
No, I don't think that we do have, but I think that that's an excellent point. And I know that we've had this conversation with HUD a couple of times, the folks over at ONAP, because they also see the same exact things that we do. They get the Indian housing plans. They see the best practice models that might be out there. And, you know, if there was some way for us to identify them, and you do bring up a good point, and maybe we can look at that, because that would be an excellent piece to have, is the best practices and what these folks are doing in these different areas.
Yeah, I think in cooperation with HUD, you might be able to find some resources to actually do that. I think that would be extraordinarily helpful for us. Okay. Recognizing that there may be a hesitancy because, as the chairwoman talked, that once they discover how you're leveraging dollars, they may say, oh, stop that. That's not going to happen. So please, that's not our goal here. Our goal here is to try and encourage good best practices in reservations. I want to maybe talk to you, Mr. Yeah, I'm always on the end. I can never see. Thank you. About the work that you're doing working with mortgage financing. And I will tell you, I had the experience of running the State Housing Finance Agency when I was the Attorney General of North Dakota. We worked tirelessly for 4 years to try and get one project in Indian country that financed first-time homeowners. We were never able to do it because of the model of what happens with trust property. And so obviously we're concerned about that. But is there any advice that you can give us on working with the mortgage lenders, working with banks, things that you've seen in your experience that could be taken to reservations about leveraging private funds?
From my perspective, I believe it comes down to having good tribal laws in place on the reservation trust areas. In our particular area and in most of Oklahoma's Indian areas, we do business on fee simple land, which are governed by the laws of the state, and therefore the investors, not only the home buyer investing in a home, but then the private capital that's made available to loan to that home buyer, need those laws in place to be assured that to mitigate the risk of loss of their capital and their resources and investment.
Yeah, I think that's an easier model than developing private housing that can be basically mortgage ready. And so, Mr. Cooper, maybe you can help me in talking about the difficulty, or maybe it's not true anymore, the difficulty of doing mortgage financing on trust land.
No, it's. I think we still see those difficulties out there. I think that, for instance, the provision in 710 that would extend it to a 99-year lease,
Helpful.
that's an excellent start. That's one of those things that is needed for those pieces of those trust properties out on our members that live out on reservations, because it is hard to get folks to invest in a piece of property if there's not a guarantee there.
And many times what you're missing is the opportunity to bring people to the community.
Yes.
They will look for those mortgage opportunities off Indian country, probably away from the community, and not be participating the way
That's right.
those community members would participate if they were in the community.
Absolutely.
If I could just ask the chairwoman if she has any insights on mortgage finance in Indian country.
Well, we passed a foreclosure ordinance through our tribal courts, and we work with lenders to become certified in Section 184, help them become familiar. So we don't run into as many problems with having traditional mortgage banking on our reservation. So
After you did this, did you see an uptick in mortgages?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We also see that some tribal members, especially if they have a blended family, choosing to buy private land on the reservation. And they also know that we're a market, because we'd like to reclaim, obviously, pieces of our homeland as well. So the lease issue for us with the 99-year leases, we will not lease to members who are not members. But what they can do is we will assist them in finding another tribal buyer, or the tribe will look at whether or not they want to acquire it. So that doesn't seem to be as big an issue for us either.
I think, as we're looking at best practices, I guess I would recommend that you look at including a section on home ownership, not just tax credits and multifamily, but really looking at that all-important home ownership that helps build communities and helps build economies. And thank you all. This is such a critical issue, and I really appreciate your testimony. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate so much that you're making this a top priority as we come out of into the 114th Congress.